Coming up, what's in a name?
You're listening to Double Tap, your daily accessible technology show. Now, here's your hosts, Stephen Scott and Shaun Priest.
Hey, Shaun Priest, how are you today?
Confused as ever, Stephen Scott, by your cryptic coming up intro there. What do you mean, what's in a name? What are you talking about now?
Well, I thought, you hear all about all these true crime podcasts that everyone's listening to, mainly our partners and wives.
Yes.
And, I want to go for that audience. I want to get those people listening to us. I want to create some mystery around here.
Oh, what? Congratulations, it worked. What are you talking about?
Well, look, a lot of you have been getting in touch following the launch of the Double Tap exclusive podcast feed, which you can get by signing up to the newsletter, doubletaponair.com/subscribe. And, we're talking about all kinds of different things over there. And it's an opportunity for us, I guess, to... and I know we do drift off tech around here. I know we do. In fact, we're doing it right now. But, it does happen. But over on the exclusive, we can kind of expand on some of those issues. I mean, I was talking the other week about my guide dog application and all that kind of stuff. So, it kind of gives us room to, I don't know what it is, to be perfectly honest. We just enjoy hanging out and it's a place to talk.
It's a more relaxed, casual chat. More relaxed and casual
More
than
relaxed
this.
than this? Wow. Are we horizontal while we do that show? Because that's about the only way it can be more relaxed.
Sometimes.
But yeah, some people aren't happy with my choice of name because the show is called the Double Tap Exclusive. That's what when you sign up to it, that's what it's called.
Perfect name.
The head of things around here decided that would be a good approach because, they didn't like some of the name choices I had. And dollop is what I like to call it. I like to call it the Double Tap Dollop.
It's an awful image that it conjures. It's just a disgusting word to use.
It's not disgusting. I like dollop. Don't you think dollop is... I think of a dollop of ketchup next to some chips.
That's true.
Or fries.
Yes.
Now, if I said to you, fancy a dollop of ketchup, you're like, oh, yes, please.
Well, no, I wouldn't. You know what? It just sounds awful. And I'm guessing by your intro that our listeners agree with me.
Okay, there's a few people who agree with you, all right?
Thank
Just a couple. A few people agree with you.
I'm with
Others
you, brothers
don't.
and sisters.
There's no one true opinion around here.
Unless it's going to be called dollop. Shut up.
So, yeah, look, Callum got in touch. Callum Stoneman, good friend of ours, who hosts that other tech show over there.
Which other one?
Who would know? But here's the thing. He got in touch and he sent me a private message. He was telling me that he had an opinion about the name. He wanted to suggest his own name for this particular
What, the Double Tap Callum? Are we calling it that?
That's right, yeah. Let's go. He wanted to name it by Double Tap Stone Man. That's what he wanted to call it. Yeah,
better than
no one was
dollop.
keen on that. You think so? So anyway, he thought that I wouldn't tell you. He thought I would keep this to myself and that I wouldn't tell you. So he was going to send in a message to feedback. Okay. But I've managed to preempt it because I'm jumping in ahead of this. I'm jumping in ahead of the game. I don't silence people around here. If you disagree with me, I will happily, share your view. We can discuss it like adults.
Lay it on me then. Let's hear what Callum's got to say.
He thinks it should be called Magic Tap.
Oh. Yeah, some things should be censored.
It's terrible, isn't it?
No.
Isn't
Double
that
Tap
the
Magic
worst
Tap.
name?
Have we got to have Double Tap in there, or are we dropping Double Tap and just calling it Magic Tap?
I think Magic Tap, right? If we just called it that, it sounds like a circus act.
It does sound a little bit, sounds a bit,
Although in saying that,
circusy.
again, dollop kind of works for that reason. Magic Tap, circus act. You can kind of see where they're going with it.
I think we just got to blue sky it a little bit more, Stephen Scott.
Blue Sky's taken.
Oh, is it? What about Threads? What about X? Double Tap X.
Twitter, is that available?
It probably
Let's
is.
just take that.
Actually, Twitter works well. That's sort of
It
what we
does,
do
actually,
on there.
yeah.
Double Tap Twitter.
There you go.
That's that sorted. Either
I'll
way,
I'll email Elon and see what he says.
Yeah, Elon will be up for it, I'm sure. We all agree that Dollop is a terrible name.
It's not a terrible name.
Exclusive sounds a little bit, sort of, I don't know, high class.
It does. It sounds highbrow.
It does.
That's not us.
How dare you?
Look, are you going to tell me I'm wrong?
No, I was going to. No. Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, feel free to send in your suggestions for the dollop. And also, look, as well as that, because let's get past the name for a second, right? Okay. If there's something you'd like us to talk about, if there's a topic that because there's a lot of topics that come up, And there's a lot of stuff we do want to talk about that isn't necessarily attached to tech. We know it's a tech show here. Sorry, something caught in my throat there. We try to keep this as tech show as much as we possibly can. But of course, the reality is, and it's kind of a sadness, really, that there are so few places that are actually able to open up for conversation on the issues we end up talking about. Tech is, of course, the center of it all. But the reality is that there's just nowhere else you can really go to talk about the real issues. And I mean the real issues, the real stuff that we talk about. Yeah, I know there's lots of charities and organizations that have got their own podcasts, and that's brilliant. But, they're always going to present a positive image because that's what they've got to do. They're all about raising money, or they're all about selling products. They're not going to come in and say, God, isn't it terrible to be blind? And I think sometimes
that's where we come in.
Well, that's where, yeah, it is. But it is because somebody's got to say it sometimes. And it's okay to be that way. It's okay to say, look, so it's Disability Pride Month, okay? Now, you probably didn't even know it was Disability Pride Month.
Don't start.
I only know about it being Disability Pride Month because it's all over LinkedIn, the world's largest bragging network. By the way, hello to Angela, who's on there, who sent me a message saying, I like LinkedIn. I'm on it all the time, and I love your show. You don't need to keep calling it the bragging network. We're not all bragging on here. Okay, fine. I'll accept that.
Which is why you said it again just
but it
then,
is
is it?
Also the world's biggest bragging network.
I don't know. I don't use it, so I can't comment.
It's not the most accessible either, if I'm honest, which is kind of ironic when you see all these people going on about how wonderful accessibility is, and yet, you go on the platform and it's barely accessible in itself.
Are they in charge of the accessibility of the service?
Well, hang on a minute though. If you're on going on about how wonderful accessibility is, as in your own field or in your own area, and you're on an inaccessible platform, that's not a good look, is it?
Possibly. Who owns LinkedIn? Is that still Microsoft?
No, it's Meta that owns LinkedIn.
Is it Meta? Okay, all right.
Which is, Facebook isn't the most accessible either. It's accessible. I'd say it's more accessible than LinkedIn is.
It's huge. I can't even comment how accessible it is. I can get through it. I can reply to posts mostly. I always do it on the iPhone though, so I don't know. It's just hard work to navigate through.
Yeah, but I see a lot of people on there talking about Disability Pride Month, and I look, and again, if you want to be proud of it, good for you. Absolutely, you go, you be you. But you know what? I think this is why shows like this need to exist, because we need to be able to present the other side. And there are a lot of people out there who are not feeling proud, and I hear from you. You get in touch, and there are many, many emails that come in. People saying,
I'm not being dragged into this conversation.
I'm not talking about this. I'm not going to get into it again.
We're not having this row again.
I'm not having a rant about it. I'm just saying that we need to be able to have space for us to be able to have a say on this as well. And I don't feel there are many people out there who are presenting podcasts, for example, who want to have these conversations. That's why I'm so glad AMI Audio exists. That's why I'm so glad Double Tap exists, so that we can do this. And I'm so glad that they are proud to have us. At least I hope they are. Unless
God bless you, Mr. F.
The phone could ring any minute, and let's be honest, it could all be over. But so far so good, right? Been doing this for a long time, and the thing I've always stood by is be honest, be real, because that's what we're about here. And sometimes being disabled can be a good thing in some ways. I've sat in first class and not paid for it. That's nice. And that was kind of a nice moment. And other days it's lawnmower man comes along, and like we said, lawnmower man comes and you can't cross the road, and it's an absolute nightmare. So yeah, I think it's about just talking about the realities. Anyway, that's what I wanted to say on it.
Okay, Steve.
Be proud if you want to. I'll tell you. So here's the thing.
Very deep and profound.
I don't want to go on about it, but here's the thing.
Well,
I get an email from AMI, from the PR team. They want to do a thing around Disability Pride Month with us, and I'm really struggling with it because I'm like, I just can't be positive about this. Now, look, in fairness, that's probably exactly what the PR team want to hear. They want to hear the real stories, right? Because again, at AMI, they want to hear all sides.
It's such a fine line to walk, right? Look, we talked about Facebook, all social media. It's so easy to get stuck in our point of view. You remember the times, when we had more vision and we were dismissive of specialist tech all the time, right? And now you've really embraced, things like Braille displays and other specialist tech as well. Yeah. So our point of view does change as our situation changes. And I see it all the time. I'm not going to say which groups, but, in certain groups on social media, you see people who have just been diagnosed and they're their thoughts of what's at the end of the road, they're absolutely terrified. So you do need that positive slant. Hey, it's not that bad, But at that point, you can't really hear that.
Balance,
but then talking amongst ourselves, saying, you know what? Like the other day, I just sat there in the living room, and it just suddenly, for absolutely no reason, I just thought, my God, I can't see anything. And it's like, yeah, of course not. You haven't seen anything in years. What are you talking about? But sometimes you just go, wow, I really can't see anything. And you mull on it for a minute or seconds, and then you move on. But
that's it. That's it there, right? That's exactly the point.
Yes.
That's the bit that needs to be acknowledged. Because that's the bit I fear doesn't get acknowledged out there. I don't see other people say this stuff. Because as soon as someone says it, as soon as someone says, I've had that day, everyone rushes to, but it'll all get better and everything will be fine. And, once you find your pride or once you feel better. And it's like, no. Acknowledge the problem first, okay?
Sometimes
that could go on for years. That could go on for months. It could go on for days. It could happen, like you say, just like that in the middle of a day. I know exactly what you mean. I was through this when I told you about the whole guide dog application experience. The next day I felt so down. I couldn't believe how down I felt. And it was unusual for me to feel that way. I couldn't even understand it.
But as someone who's just been diagnosed with any sort of sight condition, right? At that point, if you start saying, I had a terrible day today or whatever, it almost becomes unbearable. It's so hard to put yourself in the situation of dealing with that at the start. I hate saying at the start of the journey, but you know what I'm saying.
I know.
And it may be just too much.
There's an end to it. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And there isn't. There isn't.
Wow, it's never-ending pain.
Well, no,
okay.
but
this is what I'm talking about. Where do we go with this?
But this is the thing, right? So I see some people online who I really respect, and a lot of people who I do really like, who will, say things. They talk about it as, once I got over the hating myself and hating the condition and hating that and realizing that society is the barrier and it's not me, and actually it's all on, then it's like some kind of nirvana moment, and you think, is it though? And why do we have to think that everybody reaches that moment, and do we want everyone to reach the same place? I mean, of course we want people to feel comfortable in their own skin. And the thing is that, and this is again why it's so important to have this conversation in the fullness of the conversation, not just in the sense of, okay, so, it all just gets better in the end, because that means nothing to someone who's just been told they're losing their sight. If you're sitting in an ophthalmologist's waiting room and then you get taken in and someone says to you, listen, I know you drove here today, but I need to take your car keys off you, or you need to get someone else to come and get you because you can't drive home. And that person happens to be a lorry driver. That's their career finished. That's their job gone. That's their career over. Their life, as far as they're concerned, is changed forever.
Mm-hmm.
If you walk out the room and say, but it's all going to be great, and once you learn Braille, it'll be fine, and once you can label stuff using QR codes, and you're like, what are you talking about? I can't drive, I can't work, I can't do anything. How am I going to deal with things? These are the kind of, you've got to have that initial understanding of that. You have that conversation, and you allow for people to have those feelings in the room.
Yes.
And then
that's true.
Then you have the conversation of, well, look, here's something you can try, or here's something that can get you started. Because that's how it began for me. I remember I met a guy called John way, way back years ago, and he told me how he was using his iPhone. And at the time I was fairly into stuff like this, but I wasn't as into it from the totally blind perspective. I was low vision at that stage, so I wasn't using voiceover. And he showed me how it worked. And I was like, oh, cool, okay. And for a moment, I thought, well, if this gets worse, I actually don't feel so bad now. In just that little moment, I thought, well, at least I could still do that. And so it's the little wins. I remember meeting a guy, I was at a train station, and I was sitting waiting for the train, and you sit, oftentimes you get taken to, in particular in London, in England, you get taken to the mobility station or whatever it is.
Shed.
Yes, right, yeah. Usually a waiting room somewhere. And you sit there, and anyone with a disability or who needs assistance will come in there and sit and wait for the assistance to turn up. And this guy was sitting next to me, and he must have heard me put my cane away, or maybe he saw, I don't know. But he said to me, can I just ask, are you totally blind? And I said, no, I've got some vision. And he said, I'm losing my sight. And I said, okay. And we sat there for 20 minutes, just because we had to go at that point, but I had 20 minutes. And he said to me, how do you read books? And I said, that's a really interesting question that you know, of all the things you could bring up, that's what you bring up. And he said, I love reading. He said, I absolutely adore reading books. And all I keep thinking is, how am I going to read a book? And so I sat and I talked to him. I said, well, there's audiobooks, and there's in the UK, there's the RNIB, and, there's this talking book service, and there's this and there's that, and there's Caliber Audio Library, and there's all these different services. And then there's devices, and, there's all this kind of stuff that you could get access to. Initially, I would contact RNIB. I would ask some questions. I would talk to them. I said, but, be prepared. It's going to be tough, and to be honest, that's not the only issue you're going to face. And he says, what do you mean? And I said, well, look, it's not just about reading books, is it? You're losing your vision. So there's a lot more to this. So you're going to need some emotional support. Have you thought about that? Not really. And so we had this whole conversation in the 20 minutes. And I don't know what happened to him, but he seemed a bit more relieved after I left that there was at least someone he could talk to. I don't mean me. I mean someone, a pathway for a conversation to happen. And I think that's often the problem, because people get wrapped up in themselves and in ourselves. And I think the distance grows if you are someone who's blind, who's become blind very recently, and then you go to a podcast, you go to an organization, and you hear a podcast, everyone's talking about climbing mountains or becoming a Paralympian, or, and you think, that's just not me. And that used to put me off. I mean, I worked for the RNIB. I worked for RNIB Radio for many years. We did lots of stories on that stuff. And, I used to rail against it in there. I'd say, look, we've got to talk about the real stuff.
It's inspiring, Stephen Scott. How dare you?
Of course it is. But I'm wondering who it's inspiring to. Because I don't think it's inspiring to other people who are losing their sight, if I'm honest. I think of course we should have aspirations. I think that's important. We do need to have aspirations. Otherwise, you and I would just sit here for an hour a day just complaining about everything. Well, we can't do that.
Look, how often do we, talk to people and we think, I didn't think, someone would be able to do that in our situation, no matter what it is. And it is. I think it's all about honesty, isn't it? It is just about the conversation. I don't think there's any quick way for someone who's just been diagnosed or just suddenly lost a lot of sight to make it okay. If I say this, it'll make it better for you, because it just isn't. But It's all about being honest and having that conversation. I will agree with you there, yeah.
I think the key is to, and I would always give people this advice, accept the fact that you're going to have dark days. You will. You are. You're going to have dark days. And again, it's important to say that, because no one else will. Shaun, no one's saying this. No, you show me another show on this planet that's saying this.
I'm sure
and it's a
there's
damn
others
disgrace.
No, well, I think it's important to say that when you're first diagnosed, you think it's all going to be those days. You don't see any light at the end. All these words that we're using are so inappropriate. You don't see any light at the end of the tunnel. Every day is going to be a dark.
And then one day it's an eye-opener.
Yeah, that's right. I think it is important to acknowledge that. And, no one's expecting you to be doing cartwheels every single day of the week. But also, you do need to say, it's just you get used to it.
No, but that's...
Isn't that enough?
No, but that was what I was going to say before you rudely interrupted me.
Sorry, carry on.
That's what I was going to say. Right, absolutely. You're going to have the dark days. But in a way, you kind of need to allow yourself that. In my case, for example, I felt a lot of anger at the beginning. And, I was very lucky. I worked in a building that had soundproof studios. I could go in and just yell at the walls. It was great. I highly encourage, if you're losing your sight, to find a soundproof studio and scream a lot. Because it's useful. And I did that, and I found that useful. I found, talking to people helped to some degree. In the initial days, it was more just me venting. There was no real discussion. The person sitting opposite me could say, frankly, anything. And actually, I had a great friend, my good friend Alan, who, he would sit there, and I really felt sorry for him, because the amount of times I would just sit there and just vent. And he didn't say anything. And it was perfect, actually. It was perfect, because he knew there's nothing he could say that was going to make any difference. He gave up. He'd gone away. He'd gone home. I'm sick of this guy. But you need to have those days, because it allows you to get that pressure out. You've got to get rid of that pressure, that venting, because that allows you the ability to heal. It's a process you've got to go through. And I think once you have that moment where you've opened up, it does help. You do feel that really. It's like having a good cry.
We're
it's
so
like,
touchy-feely, Stephen Scott. What's happened to this show?
Oh, stop being an alpha male.
Come on.
It's all about feelings nowadays. God, this is me talking.
Okay. I miss a rant.
Anyway, I don't know why we get into that.
No,
but
I don't either.
Anyway, the thing's
have
called
some
Dollop.
feedback?
Get over it.
Oh, yeah, that's... Wow. And double tap, magic tap. Yeah,
That's
I don't know.
terrible.
I'm not a fan, Callum. I must admit, not your best work, sir, but thank you anyway.
Yeah. No, I'm not thanking
Double
you for
tap,
that.
rotor. Oof.
Email,
Rotor.
we get email. We get your email every day.
Ding dong.
Here's your mail today.
Eesh. Double tap, swipe. Oh, I don't like that either.
Do you know, there was a show on TV, I think it was in the UK, called Swipe. I did
Yeah.
think about calling the show Swipe at one time. That was one of the other names I had for this show, believe it or not. There you go, some background for you.
Oh,
it was
that
originally going to be called
interesting.
Swipe.
I can't wait to read the book about that story Stephen's got.
It's gonna be great.
Sounds
Yeah.
intriguing.
Yeah, I was eating a Kit Kat, and
Oh, emails, please. Someone save this show.
save the show. Right, where will we start? Let's go. Dean in New Zealand.
Oh,
What's he going to say now?
love you, Dean.
Oh, give me a Kit Kat.
Well, to take a leaf out of Stephen's legendary rant book, can you please remind the clever Trevors with their demonstrations to please slow their damn voices down? That lady doing the Alexa Plus demonstration may have had her voice speaking a non-English speaking language. The terrible male voice was speaking so damn fast, a whole lot of mumbo-jumbo. Not everybody can hear the speech at a high, fast damn speed. And what's more, us humanoids don't speak at a high, fast damn speed. It shouldn't even be an option to be able to increase the damn speed of the voices on any damn device. Doing that is not impressive, smart, or cool. Nobody likes to show off or skite. Cease and desist, people. Rant over. From Dean in New Zealand.
Wow.
Well, can I just say that swearing isn't big and clever either, Dean.
Damn right.
Do you know what? Going back to, was that about the Lady A Plus
Yeah.
demo? I didn't think it was that fast, because we do look out for that, and if possible, we will try and slow it down. It's really difficult to slow down speech, as in, TTS in post, because it just sounds really strange if you try and slow it down in an audio editor. So yeah, I do agree with you. You do have to be careful with that. And you know what? I've recorded stuff in the past and forgot to slow it down, so it's understandable, but you are right, Dean.
Yeah, it is hard as well sometimes when you're used to speeds. I mean, if you're used to, say, 70 or 80% speed on your screen reader,
50 or 55 just seems like,
it seems so slow. It was funny. My Mac got confused the other day again. I don't know why it does this, but every so often the voice just gets confused. I think if you have any more than one voice in I would say the rotor, but it's not really the rotor. It's like there's an additional voices option in VoiceOver now in the Mac, and you can do it on the phone as well. You can have a number of different voices, and you can just choose on the rotor on the iPhone. You can choose voices and then swipe up and down and pick a different voice if you've added different ones to the list. And you can do the same on the Mac, and it's fine. But sometimes it gets confused, and it's like, which one do you want to use? Or if you have activities set up, and I do want to talk about activities at some point, actually, because that's a very interesting feature of the Mac in particular. You do have it on the phone. I've never used it on the phone.
No, me neither.
Don't really know what I would use it for on the phone, but yeah, it depends on. Basically, you can customize VoiceOver settings within apps. So you can say, and even not just apps, but contexts as well. So when you're in a certain
yeah, I never really understood the context aspect of it either. I can understand, like, when I'm in the app, let's say the mail app, then change to this voice and slow it down so I can, listen to my lovely emails. I get that. Makes total sense. But, context? I don't really understand.
There's tons of options you can play with. I mean, the one I was using most recently was WhatsApp. And on the Mac, it's a little bit tricky to navigate. It's not you can use what's called window spots to jump around.
It's great on Windows, by the way.
Oh, it's brilliant on Windows, yeah. A
thanks.
million different ways to use it on Windows that are just brilliant. But if you want to use it on the Mac, you really have got to tame it a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's where the voiceover activities come in. But anyway, so I was in there and I was mucking around, and it changes the voice. And it changed to Daniel at like 40%. And honestly, it was like torture.
You want to rip your ears off.
Oh, it was horrible. I did. It was horrible.
Mm-hmm.
So, it can be difficult. The reason, I think, is ultimately, and again, this is not true for everybody, and certainly clearly not for you, Dean, but for a lot of people out there, that you get to a point where you do feel like you could just speed this up a little bit, speed it up a little bit, and you go from having, quite comfortably listening at 50%, it's 55, we'll try 60. Do you know what? I could go a bit faster than that. Let's settle at 65. And then suddenly you're at 70, and then you're suddenly 80, and off you go. And it gets so normal and so natural that you hear anything else, it seems weird. And even if you slow it down, I mean, it sounds slow, but you wouldn't even consider slowing down to 50%. You would slow down to 70 because you think that's, more like it. So
it's like
when
accents, you get used to it, and then
exactly.
And
when you're recording demos, it is better if you can slow it down to around 50-55% if you can, because it does help people who are struggling to hear it, like Dean. I wouldn't scold people for doing it. I think we're all guilty of it, so
Well, there is degrees to it. I didn't have an issue with the Lady A Plus demo, but I totally understand.
Let's go to Camille.
Well, I totally agree with Stephen in that the conversations with some of the attendees at the Inclusive Africa event were invigorating. And if Aflalo is correct in that the Double Tap podcast is the only one covering this event, well, kudos to the Double Tap team for making it happen. From Camille.
Yeah, we were. We're the only show on the planet to cover it.
Really?
I kind of think that's cool. I also think it's terribly sad.
I was blown away by the Inclusive Africa event, to be honest.
Yeah,
it's just the amount of passion and the amount of knowledge there was absolutely amazing. Again, it comes down to my sort of perception of technology in certain areas of the world, but I was blown away. You know what really hit me? There was quite a few things actually, but one of the things that hit me was, I think it was you asking the question about how has technology helped? And the response back was, actually, technology has also caused the issue as well. And that was regarding the spread of misinformation and myths and untruths about albinism.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that blew me away.
We always come out as like, tech is the answer, right? Tech can help. But in this case, it actually helped spread misinformation and actually put people, at risk in some cases. And I just thought, it's that sort of thing that makes you stop and think and sort of reassess your position as well. It was really interesting.
Yeah, it was a stark reminder that social media is good for, furthering, because you kind of think, well, if you're exposing people to more people, more views, then you'll get a more, a wider view of the world. But actually, as much as it spreads truth, it can also spread lies. And that's the problem. So you can, and in this case, and that was a perfect example of it, where information and the realities of life with albinism and the people who live with albinism in Africa, are the stories are horrendous, as we told you. And that's just being furthered by social media. You would think that would have been dissolved, those issues would go away, that those problems would be, would be challenged, but they're not being challenged.
Actually, the attitudes and the untruths still prevail. It's just spread in a different way. Yeah, it was such an interesting event.
Yeah, it's sad that a lot of organizations and a lot of people around the world, despite the fact that we have this medium, and this is, bear in mind, I'm sitting in the UK, you're sitting in the UK. We did this via an amazing team of people who were on the ground in Nairobi, and we did the whole thing virtually. And I take no praise for this because it had nothing to do with me. It was all Mark Aflalo who engineered and organized this whole thing.
Amazing job, yeah.
And he did an incredible job bringing it together, and the team. And it was brilliant because it gave us the chance to do this, and anyone can do it. You can. If you've got a show and you've got a platform, you could invite those voices on. Why wouldn't you want voices from around the world? So, I encourage others to take up the mantle and do that as well because, but in saying that, I'm glad we covered it, and we will definitely be back there next year covering it again because I think, it's really interesting, and it gave us an insight. For us, it was like year one of our coverage of it because we kind of were starting to get to know it, what was going on, some really interesting conversations around tech, and there was even more conversation around AI and how it can, again, it's that whole AI and accessibility conversation, but tailored to the needs of Africans.
Yeah.
And that's a conversation, again, I'm not hearing anywhere else. So, yeah, very interesting. Yeah. Okay, let's move on. In fact, we'll take a short break. We'll come back and we will have more of this.
Get in touch with Double Tap. Email feedback at doubletaponair.com. Leave us a voicemail at 1-877-803-4567. And now you can send an audio or video message to us on WhatsApp. That number is 1-613-481-0144.
Okay, let's carry on with the emails. We'll go to Nicole.
Hello, Double Tap. It's Nicole calling from Saskatoon. This would be message 2. I'm sorry, I think I'm going too long. So, shopping for clothes. I used to have a really hard time getting sighted people to come with me to go into the stores, physically into the stores and finding things, searching for things, and whether things were available or not was a hit and miss thing. Now there's that, but the online dimension has been added too, and I hear lots of sighted people talking about that they order clothes online and that there are these charts for sizes and how different things fit and how they can guesstimate and they order stuff and it works for them. And now I would think that all of that is pictures, right? I would think that, and especially those size charts and things. So I can't imagine that there would be any kind of text-to-speech or that JAWS, for example, would, I mean, how would JAWS even begin to interpret stuff like that? I don't know. So I'm calling Double Tap and Double Tappers to see if, like, there's not only me on this planet that has this issue. So how do you guys deal with it? What do you do? Yeah. And just as it's hard to find sighted assistants to go physically to the stores, it's even hard to find sighted assistants to work with me to go through the pictures and the graphs and the charts online too. I don't know about everyone else, but in my world, the sighted people are busy, always busy, and so it's really hard to get them to take time. And also I feel, well, essentially I feel like I need to apologize for being blind. Oh my goodness, thank you so much for being there, you two, Stephen and Shaun, and all the issues that you raise and all of the things that you talk about, they are so relevant and so relatable, and you are a bright spot in my day, and you, I mean, so many things that I thought it was only me that was experiencing, like the last 10 yards, for example, with the GPS, and sighted people just don't get it, and I thought I was the only one experiencing this, but it feels so good to be able to, I guess, to have affirmation about these things, and I love it when you two laugh, and you know what? And sometimes it's really important not to laugh and to be serious about things, because some of these issues that we face are very serious too. But it's so good that you are there, and I'm so very grateful for everything that you do. And I'm going to call you at some point with another call just for all of the things to say thank you for, because there's so many, and oh my goodness, you two are just so important. So don't ever stop the podcast, because you give so much encouragement to people, and sometimes we need that. Okay, so thank you, and I'm going to keep listening, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Bye for now.
Goodness me, you're going to get me crying in a minute here, Nicole.
I'm blushing. I mean, there's absolutely no need to say thank you. We love just talking anyway, so it's absolutely fine. But thank you so much for that message. It's really nice. Thank you.
I mean, I hadn't heard that message before we played it, and you know, it kind of almost feels like it justified everything I said in the first 20 minutes, didn't it? I kind of feel justified to say all that now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nicole. That means a lot.
Online shopping, Stephen Scott. Is it the answer, or is the death of the high street purely down to the internet?
Well, I mean, again, it's the tech
Who
promise.
cares? Let's talk about the accessibility.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, that was the thing, right? The whole promise was that, everything would be more accessible online with AI, especially. There were these tools that you could, essentially, for people who had vision, you could try on clothes. This is a big thing now. You can try clothes on before you buy them. You can upload your picture and it'll show you what you look like in that dress or whatever. With AI, I remember that tool. I think Amazon had something once. I can't remember the name of it, but there was a thing they sold. I think it was only in America.
Yeah, was it like a mirror, a smart something?
Well, it was more like a camera, wasn't it? And you would stand in front of it, and you could say, how do I look, and it would tell you.
Terrible.
Yes, I'm sure it would with me. I mean, I'll be honest. I'm not the guy to talk about this because I buy the same T-shirts, the same pairs of jeans, the same things all the time. And if I feel it's getting too big, I send them back and buy a size down. And that's kind of how I've done it. And I think and it's funny actually, right? Because my mother-in-law, she buys a lot of stuff and returns a lot of stuff. And we always have a bit of a joke about how she's always sending stuff back. But what a lot of people do is they'll buy things in multiple sizes.
That's exactly it. That's how everyone does it. Yeah. Blind or sighted, that's what people do. You buy in my case, triple XL or a double XL.
Or a 4.
And see which one fits. In my case. And you send it back. That's how it works. Now, I have noticed a bit of a trend in companies now starting to charge for returns.
Trying to discourage it.
You're trying to discourage it, but it's absolutely, you're right. Depending on where you are in the world, but consumer rights are generally the same, especially if you're buying sort of unseen. That you can return them anyway. So that's how people do it. They buy multiple sizes. In the case of, sort of size charts on the Amazon app, at least on the iPhone, a lot of them are accessible in the form of a table. So M is chest size, 40 to 45 inch and so on, and waist and leg. You can actually just swipe through with VoiceOver and it will read the chart out to you. Now, of course, that's specific to the shopping service that you're using. You may go to another website and it's just, as you said, an image. In that case, if you're using something like Jules, you could use the Picture Smart and it would, OCR and try and get any information out of that image. So there are ways around it, but you know what? A lot of the time, people just buy multiple sizes and see what fits. And the return process, again, how accessible is that? So we've got those hurdles you need to sort of work your way over, but a lot of the time it's just try it. Just try it, and you may be surprised. It may be a more independent process than you actually think it's going to be.
And it might be worth checking in with Be My Eyes because, you call up, and I know you might be thinking to yourself, well, I'd like a female's opinion on this. So, you can obviously say, if it's a guy that answers, then you can say, well, look, I'm going to, I'll ask you my opinion, but actually I'd kind of like to hear a female. I can hang up and, call someone else.
Sorry to jump in here. Can you request the gender?
Don't think so. No.
Because actually, is that a terrible idea or is that a good idea? Well, everyone's so nervous now about when it comes to talking about anything like this. But I'm kind of thinking, there are some occasions where someone may want. Actually, I want to talk to a woman, a female.
Yeah. I think that's not a bad idea. I also think, Ira is an option, but it's an expensive option, so perhaps not for everybody. But again, they could, spend time with you to go through all this kind of stuff and talk you through it. Again, the difficulty is with things like this, it's all subjective, right? So you might think something's nice, they don't, but, they don't really know you, and it gets tricky, and family members can be helpful to a point. I don't know your situation, Nicole. I know for me it's difficult because there's no one really who could help me with this stuff, which is kind of why I buy the same clothes all the time, because I don't really have anyone I can ask.
I'm stuck in the 80s. I'm still wearing double denim.
Yeah.
I just don't know. Fine.
I honestly, I partly gave up on it, and I don't know if that's, I'll say it, I think it's a bit of a guy thing. I will say this as well, not every guy, because I hear a lot of guys now who are way more into their fashion than I ever would have been.
Could be an age
I'm a
thing
bit old-fashioned in that, Yeah, I'm a bit old-fashioned in that regard. I just, I don't really care that much. I do think there's an opportunity here for for InnoSearch. Are you listening, InnoSearch? Because I think this could be something you could do really well. You think about the capability of what we can do with the tools for, buying all the things you can buy on Amazon or eBay or whatever else. If you could, and maybe they can adapt that for clothing, that could be really useful. That could be really good.
Yeah. Well, InnoSearch is definitely, if you're, dipping your toe into online shopping, definitely give InnoSearch a try. See how you get on with that.
Okay, listen, Nicole, thank you so much. And always feel free to get in touch anytime you want. You can get in touch anytime. We love hearing from you. Thank you so much for your messages. And beautiful Saskatoon. Can you spell that?
I knew you were gonna say something to me then, because you know I struggle with all that. Saskatoon, lovely.
I think it's S-A-K. Hang on, no, it's not. S-A-S-K-A-T-O-O-N, isn't it? Saskatoon.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Correct. Please, next email.
Feedback. Okay, let's move on to Callum.
Hi, Stephen, Shaun, and Laura, and all the Double Tap family. Loving the show as always. I was after some advice on Apple Watches. I have an SE at the moment and I like it, but the battery is rubbish. So I was thinking of getting a refurbed Ultra or Ultra 2, but my mobile carrier won't work with them. My question is, if I bought one, would it work when connected to my iPhone the same as my SE does, or would it constantly say, why aren't you connected to cellular? Also, I was catching up a couple of weeks ago and heard a message from Eleanor and realised when the whole bus went silent that I had said, yay, when you announced her message, lol. I genuinely feel a connection to the other listeners, so was pleased to hear she was on the mend after being ill. Was strange not hearing from her for so long. Keep up the amazing work, and that goes to the Double Tappers too. Warmly, the other Callum, currently melting in Yorkshire.
The other Callum. Wow. How many Callums do we have? This is Greg's.
Not enough Callums.
There's always too many Gregs. There's too many Callums.
Wow. Hello, Eleanor, as well, if you're listening.
Yeah, I haven't heard from
We
Eleanor
love
in a
you.
while. Hope you're okay.
Okay, the Apple Watch. You know what? I picked up my Apple Watch the other day for checking my weight, and that's the only time I use it now.
How do you mean? Oh, I see. Right.
I use the Renfo Health app. Yes, no, it doesn't. It doesn't
Put the
speak
scales
your-
in there as well. That's clever. Stand on it with one
It
foot.
works with my smart scales to tell me that it works well. Anyway, how slow is the speech on the Apple Watch now? Again, Series 8 or 7.
You've got.
But I'm pressing, I'm tapping the screen and it's making a noise, but no speech. You got to wait so long for it to catch up now. We keep going on about how Android smartwatches, they're so unresponsive. I've got to say, the Apple Watch that I've got is so unresponsive.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have an issue with. I mean, I'm using the Ultra 2. So I'm not expecting it to be slow. It's interesting though. So, I will say that once you've gone Ultra, it's kind of hard to go back because the battery life, I got the Series 10. It didn't last long for me because as much as the Series 10 was lovely and I loved the lightness of it and I certainly liked the design of it, its battery life just was not enough. It was just not enough. It barely got through a day. And I thought, I can't be bothered with that. So I got the Ultra 2. And I'm more than happy. It just lasts forever. You really don't even notice the battery issues at all with the Ultra because it just goes on and on and on.
Just throw money at it is what you're saying.
Basically, yes. But Callum makes a fair point. You can get a refurb one. You don't have to go. And I know there's talk of the Ultra 3 this year. So that means the Ultra 2 and the Ultra
Series
will
11
become cheaper. And, they'll become cheaper on the refurb end.
The question about how does it behave? So I'm guessing the SE is a cellular version that you've got, and you're worried about losing that if you go to the Ultra, which isn't supported by your provider. It should work exactly the same as it. I've never had a cellular version, but I assume it would work exactly the same as in being able to accept phone calls, make phone calls, as long as it's connected to your iPhone.
Yes, absolutely. You don't have to have it connected via cellular. Just make sure you're not paying for that cellular plan if you still have it. You obviously want to get rid of that or transfer it to a cellular device. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm never anywhere where my watch and my phone aren't together. So I don't really know what the cellular does for me.
Yeah.
I got it from a provider. So when I got the watch, it was connected to them automatically and they just move it themselves. Now, I guess you can do it. You can transfer basically a little eSIM that's inside the watch. You can transfer it to the other watch. Haven't done it, so I can't say what the experience is. If anyone has, do let us know. But, it certainly, I haven't been in an occasion to need to use the cellular very often. When I have, it's good and it's there. But certainly it will not complain if it doesn't have it. It's not going to say to you, why have you not got cellular? It's not going to be like your iPhone when you didn't have a SIM card in it back in the day and it would just constantly go on about having a SIM card in it. Doesn't do that.
So you got two versions of both the iPad and the Apple Watch, the Wi-Fi or the cellular.
Yeah.
So the cellular basically just means that it uses the mobile networks to give you internet access. That's basically it. So you don't need to have your iPhone with you at all times to get a connection when you're away from your home. So if you've got your iPhone with you, it should be absolutely fine. Shouldn't be any problems as far as I know.
Yeah, it's funny. I changed my voice settings on my Synaptic smartwatch last night, and wow, what a difference! I mean, not a huge difference in terms of voice. I mean, it's another Google TTS voice, but I sped it up a little bit, and the reaction time is just so swift. It's so quick. Really nice. There was an update for it as well. I noticed it a little bit more speedy, so I don't know if they've made much change. There was certainly nothing new feature-wise in it, but maybe just a bit of improvement. Yeah.
So have you replaced your Apple Watch, your lovely, lovely Ultra, with your Synaptic?
I put my Synaptic watch on every day, and I don't put my Apple Watch on every day.
Does that mean it's going, free somewhere?
No.
Is that in your tech drawer?
No. Nope. You're not getting it. You're not getting the Ultra 2 because I'll change my mind at some point.
Oh,
I also like a change. It's kind of nice. It's like, I could put my Apple Watch on today. I could put, and it's because I'm using the same things. Like I was thinking about, I want to track my steps. I thought, well, okay, the Synaptic watch can do that. Make a call. It's got a SIM card in there. I can do that.
Stephen, we all remember the demo. Your steps was 0. Your distance covered was 0.
Yeah, because I'd only put the watch on that morning.
Yeah, that's what you say. Yeah, that morning and never stood up or moved. Okay.
This chair has wheels, I can just wheel back to the other desk, and it doesn't count as steps. It's almost like a challenge. Can I keep this at 0 all day?
Oh, well, that's quite cool, actually.
That's a cool challenge. That's the best challenge, isn't it?
Please don't take up any of our advice.
All the health people are like, oh no, worst advice ever. Aim for 0.
Never mind 10,000 steps. We're aiming for 0.
Yeah. But anyway. I mean, look, I think the Apple Watch is great. The Ultras are great. Again, I mean, put it this way, the Watch SE battery versus the Series 10 would be more impressive, I would say. You would get better battery life at the Series 10. But if you move to the Ultra, you're doubling the battery capability in there. So it's a really nice watch. Battery's not going to be an issue.
Do they replace batteries on Apple Watches? They must do, right? If you took it into the Apple Store, say, can I get a new battery in this? I don't know. I've never heard it done.
Don't know.
You can on your iPhone, obviously, and things like that. So why not?
Go and ask. Go and ask.
All right, don't get defensive. I'm not, okay, I will do.
Get it done.
Excuse me, I'm going to go and ring them now.
Yeah,
Next
please.
Email, please. God,
right, let's go. Let's go to
Unbelievable.
Craig.
Hi, just a couple of thoughts on a recent podcast. But before that, thanks to you both for the tech information, the honesty about your own blindness issues. At least I know I'm not the only one who feels a bit down sometimes. Importantly, on a wet, miserable day on the west coast of Scotland, the laughs and banter are hilarious. Anyhow, back to the comments. I listened to Stephen's thoughts on the application for a guide dog. My second dog, Merlin, retires at the end of July. The application process has changed so much, and you do tell them everything about blindness. However, I'm on the waiting list, which is a positive. Hopefully Stephen gets on the list soon. As someone who lost his sight quickly and got matched with my first guide dog quickly, I never got the opportunity for cane training. I'm doing this right now. Is it just me, or perhaps as someone who has always had a guide dog, it's the most complicated thing ever? On a weird personal note, I never really thought of myself as looking blind, but the white cane I think makes me look and feel blind. I'm sure most people will never talk to a blind person with a cane, but they will if they've got a dog. Shaun, O&M skills are great. Finally, pride. I don't get the concept of being proud to be blind, and perhaps I'm reading this the wrong way. I'm not sure there's anything to be proud of, and as you said, everything a sighted person does takes us twice as long, so I'm not sure at all about how some people feel okay with being blind. It's not exactly a barrel of laughs some days. Anyhow, from a sunny west coast of Scotland, where you can see, apparently, Arran, have a good day. Nearest I'll get to the place with ferries. Craig.
We're talking about the Isle of Arran, by the way.
The
Beautiful
Isle
part
of
of Scotland.
Arran.
Oh, it's a beautiful island. I remember once having a dog that was sick there.
Okay, again, wait till you publish your autobiography and we'll add that in there. That's another great story from Stephen
Places
Scott.
My Dog Vomited by Stephen Scott. I'm sure someone would buy it. I'd buy any old rubbish these days on Amazon, right?
All right, calm down. Right, what did Craig actually say there? Sorry,
I was interested in your point about the cane and how you found it weird to learn. That's interesting. I must have I very rarely speak to someone who's kind of new at that point to the cane. We often talk about the dog, but not the cane.
Feeling more blind with a cane, I feel exactly the opposite.
Well, I would say I agree with Craig. I agree with you.
I cannot move. without my cane, and I feel so awkward without it. So, but I mean, I suppose there's two aspects here, right? The outward aspect to it, or how I feel. I feel fine with my cane, but other people, obviously, it's a symbol.
I think at the beginning it's really, look, we talked about this umpteen times on the show. We met over this story, basically, how we both would walk up to our respective streets where we lived and tuck the cane away in our bag or hide it away.
Yeah.
And then try and feel our way home because we didn't want to show anyone we were blind. And it probably looked worse.
Oh, yeah.
You know, people sort of going, oh, that guy's clearly blind and really only had some kind of cane to help him get around. I mean, while we're like, I'm not blind, I'm fine, trying to get into the wrong house.
Everyone thought I was an alcoholic on my estate. I just thought I was drunk all the time. So I was saying, yeah. And for some reason, I'll go with that rather than letting people know I've got a disability. I mean, it's just so strange, our attitudes towards it. Yeah.
But that's a really interesting point about the cane. I mean, I must admit, I do feel, like you, I feel more confident now with it than I ever do. And I certainly don't think about it as much. And again, that's all time. It's just all time getting used to it. It comes, because I'm with you, Craig. At the very beginning, I felt worse. I felt like you just, a big, massive, big spotlight was on me as I walked down the street. That's how it felt. In those early days, you were so conscious of everyone, everything.
And you don't think you've got that with a guide dog?
I think you probably do, but I think because it's a dog,
the
people
attitude
react
towards
to
you is different. As Craig said, people will come up.
They talk to you like, oh, it's a dog, it's lovely, oh, cute little dog, and it's really nice. Whereas a cane is something you kind of, keep away from. I remember children used to be pulled away, from this mad man coming down the street swinging this cane left to right, thinking, move people out the way.
Quite rightly so, most of the time.
The Indiana Jones. I remember a movie where there was a big ball coming down a thing behind him, Indiana Jones. And I remember that movie. At least I think I'm remembering it right.
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
that's
chasing
me,
him down. Yeah,
and
it
the
is
ball.
you. You walk so incredibly fast, Stephen Scott.
Well, I used to, right? I don't so much anymore. Because I think, at the time I had a little bit of vision, so I could use that and let the cane pick up the slack.
Mm-hmm.
And then once the sight got worse, I was leaning more on the cane. So it was a case of, okay, I really need to be careful here. So where I used to walk quite fast, now I don't. So I think it can balance, which is good. Which is good for you, right? Because you're hanging on the back, usually, holding on to my backpack.
Holding onto the Shaun handle on your backpack, yeah? There's nothing wrong with that. I love
that, the Shaun handle. That's got to be a thing. If we ever get double tap merch, the Shaun handle needs to be on the backpack we make.
Yeah, the big handle at the top of your backpack. That's what I hang on to when Stephen's driving.
Just on the subject of mobility, let's talk hear from Karen. She's had an experience with Glide.
Hello, I'm Karen Morris from sunny North Wales, and I've just been listening to Double Tap with Amos Millerin, and I was at the Manchester event as well, but I did the morning one, and the left hand and the right hand issue came up, and Luke was saying that if you prefer to use your predominant hand, albeit left or right, you have to program that into the device. The reason being is that the way you position the glide, say if you're right-handed, it has to be aware that it's got to look out for your left side, because the glide is in front of you on your right side mainly. And I would think that's why you had difficulty when you was doing it with your left hand, Stephen. That was the first demonstration I had on the glide, and because I haven't had a guide dog now for a good couple of years, and I am not confident with the cane. I have got cane mobilities, but I'm not confident. It was very similar to the first time I was walking independently with my guide dog. So I just bring it on. I'm just so excited. I hope you had a lovely birthday yesterday, Shaun. Take care now. Bye-bye.
Oh, I did. Thank you very much.
Yeah, these emails get aged very quickly.
That's from the end of May, that one. But thank you so much. I'm glad you had a good experience with Glide. And yeah, we were at the Manchester event in the afternoon, so we didn't see you there. But I did not know that. I didn't know you had to tell Glide which hand you were using. We've had this discussion before. Has that ever come up?
Only recently I've noticed that's come up. I think that's perhaps because of a change in the software and how they're developing it. But yeah, I mean, look, I think what I'm getting from that, Karen, is the experience of similarity with a guide dog. That's kind of what I'm hoping for. You know, I would probably rather have Glide than a guide dog, if I'm totally honest.
You can't say that, Stephen.
Well, I would. That's the honest truth, because I like the Glide. I like what it offers, but I think it's very early days. And I feel there's going to be a lot of testing and a lot of things that need to be checked and a lot of comfort, you know, I need to have with that device to be truly independent with it. A dog, you know, there's a structure there. Anyway, look, we're out of time. But listen, thank you so much for all your emails. We really appreciate them. We'll get into more next time at Double Tap. Shaun, have a great day.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.